Here's another set of divisions over a repeated ground bass from the Ortiz division treatise 1553. There's a couple already earlier on the channel that I've played on bass. This one been transposed upper fourth, so we'll play it on the tenor. This is the Recercada Quinta pars. It's a particularly beautiful one, I think, but I do seem to say that about everything by Ortiz. I get it out and think, oh, this one's the most beautiful. So you've got to learn the whole book, really, one at a time. We've got a flat in the key signature, so we're going to spend a lot of time in this piece either in half position or in first position but reaching back for the B flat, so that, like in the very first bar, we can get all of those notes under our hand in one position without crossing over for the top string. But I think it's important to think of yourself as being in first position and reaching backwards, because we've got much greater extension with that finger than we have if we start in half position and think, oh, my four's a bit short and he's not going to reach. So start yourself further down the fingerboard, make sure your thumb and your second finger are opposite and you're reaching back with your first finger rather than trying to make your four longer than he really is. So this is from the top, we're in first position but extended back for the B flat. Let's see what happens. Takes us through the first playing of the ground. I did a few things in there that I think I should probably tell you about. So having said let's start in first position, in the second bar I ended up in half. Now this is a matter of choice. There's no reason why you couldn't stay in first position and put that B flat up here on the F string. But I like having the G and the B flat on two different strings. So you hear the G carry on as you cross over to the B flat. So it's personal taste, but I'm in half position. And then for the quavers, I've put both quavers on the F string, so fourth finger. And then we're back to the same sequence of notes we had in the first bar. So I'm going to play those in first again and reach back for the B flats. Now there, I've seen that A, the first A in bar 4. I've thought of that as the end of the phrase. So I think stopping that note is nice. But the next A is the start of the next phrase. And I think it's fine to play those two notes differently. They're the same pitch, but the first one is a really weak ending and the next is your start of this. So you could colour that by playing them in two different places. So I've played a stopped A, the first A in bar 4, but the second one I've opted for an open string. And I'm still in half position, so in bar 5 I've stayed on the F string to play the A with a fourth finger. Now here's a bowing thing. If we bow this straight out, all of these crotchets come backwards. I don't have a huge problem with it as long as you can make them not lumpy, but if it bothers you and you want to correct it, the place to do it is in bar 7. After the first minim, just put another back bow. And that will bring you out nicely the right way round. That's quite a lot to think about, isn't it, in the first 8 bars? Why don't we try it from the top? This is a nice steady speed. I'll count you in from the beginning. 3, 4, 1, 2. there that I didn't tell you about. This is bar 7. So just after where we put the tuck in the bowing, I put a first finger on the G and just went up the F string to reach the B flat, because it turns around on itself and comes back, so it just seems worth keeping all of that on one string, I think. Let's go on. I'm going to start this next bit on a back bow. Stop there a second. It's hard to find places to stop sometimes between one ground and the next. They kind of knit into each other, but there's a bit to think about in there. So I'm looking at the bar numbers in here are tiny, aren't they? This is bar 9. I started on a back bow and I'm in first position, holding my second finger down on that E flat. I don't spend very much time down here on a tenor. It's a really nice part of the viol, isn't it? Still got my E flat down. Now here's an interesting rhythmic thing in the triplets. This confuses people, I think, sometimes. So let's just think about this. We've got to fit those 3 notes into half a bar, the space of 2 minims. Where does the crotchet come? So the first dotted minim takes up as much time as the crotchet and the minim that follow. We've got 2 minim beats in that bar to fit them into. The first dotted minim of the triplet is the same length as 1 minim, beat 3 in that bar, and then the triplet crotchet minim are the remaining minim beat of the bar. Does that make sense? So in bar 11 you've got 1 minim on the first beat, a minim F on the second beat, then the third beat is taken up by the G, and the fourth beat by the crotchet and the minim in the triplet. So I think the point of it is that it has to have a slightly lazy feeling to it, but metrically, if you're going to work out where it goes, the crotchet of the triplet comes on what we think of as the 4th minim beat of the bar. So 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. I'm in half position just because it fits nicely. Bowing comes out well here, so the last minim of 12, I think that is 2 upbeats into this. You've got some fingering choices in here. Lots of places where you could stay on the F string, play in first position and put the B flat under your 4th finger. But sometimes I think it's nicer to play it in half position and keep the G down and have that sound carrying on rather than putting everything on the same string. It's a matter of complete personal taste. So as ever with these things, make your choice, write it in and then do it. Don't think about it every time you get there. But in 14 in fact, I'm going to play in half position. So then I'm going to stop the A with a 4th finger. Here we are still in half position in the same triplet idea. 3, 4, 1. I hope that makes sense. Let's play it together from the beginning of that ground. So this is bar 9, it starts with a minim rest. And 1. crotchets over the double bar, isn't it, into the start of the next ground. What have we got to think about in there? We've got to think that unless we do something about it, all our crotchets are going to be backwards in 17 and 18, and I think that is a bit of a shame. I think there are two possible ways of solving that, and one is that in 16, you start on a forward bow, and you put another forward bow on the second minim of that bar. Does that make sense? So the triplets at the end of 15, you start 16 on a forward bow. It's a weak note, so you're not going to use loads of bow. There should be plenty left to put another forward bow on the second minim of 16. If you don't like that, the other place to correct it is to bow this out and then just tuck the very first crotchet after the tie, and I would make it not a kind of really separated double back bow where you stop and then keep going, but I wouldn't slur it either. I don't think it sticks out too much. I think you could separate it just a tiny bit. So you basically never stop moving the bow, you just give a little bit of a squeeze with that finger to mark the first crotchet. After you've tied this over, you're in a really great part of the bow. It's nice to use that back bow to get back to the tip. Just give a little bit of an impulse to get the first crotchet and tuck it in as a back bow. So those are your two bowing options in there, I think. Whichever one you choose, you'll now be the right way round for your crotchets. And I would put a second finger on the C in bar 17, so that you've got your 4 left to play the D with. So we're in first position. Does that make sense? To save string crossing in there. Let's have a 3 on the top F. So we've got a 1 left to play the B flats, E flat rather, and then the B flat there. So I'm properly in half position from the tied F. Still in half position. How about a 4 on this though? This is the D at the start of 22. So that those notes are on adjacent strings. The 4th finger for the D, 1 for the G, and then let's play this in half for the triplets. And that all works out very nicely after that initial tuck. So whatever you're going to do in either 16, the 2 forward bows, or the extra back just tucked in at the start of 17, after you've done it, the bowing works out really nicely, I think. Let's go from 16, from the second minim of the bar, doing whichever bowing correction you've decided on. 16 from the second minim, and 1. With the bow in there, in 20 I was quite near the heel. I'd played a nice full bow on the tied F and I threw the B flat away a bit, and now I just used the rest to get myself to the tip, so I had plenty of bow to shape the tied C really nicely. Let's go on, this is a back bow. bottom string of a tenor. Expensive notes, don't get to play those very often, do we? It's a great sound though down there. I think we miss not playing the bottom string of a tenor viol. It's the sort of territory of bass players, isn't it? But it's worth getting to know the bottom of your tenor. Let's look at this next one then. We're in bar 24, and I think I said on the way past, this is going to be a back bow. It's not going to be a very big back bow though, is it? You don't need the whole lot. It's quite a light upbeat into the long note. So the difference in the bowing between that minim, which is just going to float across the string. I don't want a really speedy, lively thing, but I'm not worried about it really kind of getting into the string. I'm just going to let it float across the top. But on the tie D, slow bow, really well connected to the string. It's a long note, especially at this speed. And the first of those B flats is just nothing. The interest was in here. That one had no pressure on with the bow at all. Whereas the second B flat has a forward momentum, so it's got a livelier bow stroke. So the first one, very, very slow speed of bow, very light amounts of pressure. The second one, I'm not, again, looking for something really lively, but I am looking for something that leads onwards. So I've just got a bit speedier with the bow and a bit more connection to the string. Nothing on that final F. So we're looking at shapes of notes that look suspiciously similar in that they're all minims, but such different speeds of bow and such different amounts of pressure with this hand. That's, what is it, 27? Nothing on that F. Another back bow after the rest. Hierarchy of those minims. Very much favour the top one. Make sure you're nice and near the bridge, get a decent sound at the top, and just relax onto the F. The A is an upbeat into this. And where are you in the bow? I'm right at the tip, which is absolutely where I want to play my crotchets. So just make sure that you're not kind of stuck in the middle, that you haven't got after 28. Make sure you're not here when it comes to the crotchets, because it's the worst place of the bow, isn't it? So just get yourself back to the tip. Here, I would play all of these on the F string. So that's bar 31, middle of the bar. I've got a 1 on the G. All of those on the F string. Fourth finger for this F once we've made it over to the C string. And that's the end of that ground. Shall we go together from 24, from the second minim of the bar? It's a back bow. It's not a big back bow. It's quite a light minim. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Throw this one away and then back bow. Back to the tip. Our next ground. The bowing in this works out really nicely if we can get a forward bow on the second minim of 33. And I think it's possible after all these crotchets to just come away from that bottom note and start again on a forward bow. These two are upbeat minims into that. there's time. If you can do it, you're going to aim to leave your second finger on the B flat at the bottom and use a 3 for the F at the top. And that will allow you to come off that note with the bow shorter than a minim, cross half a dozen strings, end up back at the top, not be late, and start on a forward bow. Now here, how about 1, 2, 4 instead of the open string because we're in half position. So that's in 35, halfway through the bar, 1 on the B flat, 2 on the C, 4 on the D. Now we're back in half position. Sorry, that should have been a G, shouldn't it? Half position, I think, here. Just because I like having the G to speak all the way through that. If you want it, you could play it on the F string and put the B flat under your 4th finger. It doesn't matter. Choose, write it in. I like that in half position. Same here. Maybe stop the A. And whatever you do on the way down there, keep both of these fingers down on your left hand. So we're outlining that whole chord. Let's do that together. This is 33 from the second minim of the bar, starting on a forward bow. 33. In fact, let's do 32. So we practice the double forward bow. 32, you're going to be near the tip, and we were in first position, so the A will be a 3rd finger. The start of 32. Here we go. 3, 4. Keep your fingers down, forward bow. Back bow. Let's stop there before we get stuck into all these crotchets and get all the way to the end. So I'm looking at bar 41, the last minim of the bar. It's got to be a back bow. Half position. Easily gives you 1 finger per note down that chord. And you can even keep the E flat down, can't you, while you cross back to the F string. Bowing. It's a little bit backwards in here for this. I'm not going to bother doing anything about it though, we're just going to live with it and shape it nicely. So this B flat, look after it really well, plenty of really good sound, and then I would play 2-4, but then cross the string. Keeping the C down, obviously. Always thinking chordally, trying to outline the harmony of the bar that you're in. The first C that you play in 44, the first minim C, I think you could come away from a bit so that we hear the offbeat one, the tied one, as an offbeat thing. You could hide that, or you could make just a slight feature of it. 44 here. Tiny little back bow for this crotchet. And look, we're really nicely at the tip. And we're going to stay there for the rest of the piece. Let's do that in a second. This is 41. 41, the last minim of the bar. We're in half position. You can have all three of those fingers. You can be thinking about them before you even start. Last minim of 41. 1, 2, 3. Few fingering things to think about then in there. And why don't we start this in half position? This is 48. The crotchets. Starts nicely in half. Leave your third finger down until you need it. So I'm not moving it until I need to play the F. Here, let's do 1, 2, 4. So we're not coming over to the open string. But here, let's be in half position. So at the start of 50, I have a 2 on the G. So there's a 3 on the E flats, and that octave then is not a stretch. And I can leave my 3 on the bottom E flat. So we're in half position. But then let's put a 2 on this C at the end of 50, so that we've got a 4 for the D at the start of 51. Stay there. You can sort of do a few things here. What we're going to do, what I would do, is put a 3 on the C at the start of 52, and we're in half position, and I'm going to stay there. So that's the start of 52. Put your third finger on that C. And now in 54, let's have a 1 on this G, because we only go as far as a B flat. We're going to do it all on one string. So this is 54, first finger on the G. Fourth finger for this F. Bar, the D to the G. And here we are again with the B flat on the F string. 4 for the F. It fits really nicely under the hand. There's not a lot of string crossing in this. There's just a couple of places where you need to be absolutely certain whether you're in half position or first. And the thing is, if you decide too late, you'll have put your third finger on a C, and then you'll be trying to reach for the D with a 4 and it'll be short. So just make sure that you've spotted the places where that's crucial. And let's play it together from 48. The bowing just works out, doesn't it? Forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards, forwards and backwards, all the way to the end. You must start the first crotchet on a back bow. We're going to be nice and near the tip. Best place to play crotchets. 48 after 2. 1 and 2 and... Fits nicely under the hand, doesn't it? But potentially deadly dull, that last set of divisions, because it's just crotchets all the way through. What are we going to do about it? Well, first of all, we are actually going to play it quite a bit quicker, which will help. But otherwise, you've just got to find some patterns and some shapes as simple as things rise. Let's let the lines grow slightly in dynamic, and when things fall away, Let's take them away a bit. Let's find the odd note that we think of as a kind of ending or a place where you might breathe and get rid of that a little bit. So from 48, I'm just going to make some suggestions. That's an obvious breathing point, isn't it? Because then we've got a big leap. Why don't we just tail away a little bit, the first 3 crotchets of 50. That's the next place that seems to me it might just come away a bit. The first G in 52 becomes just really insignificant, whereas the second one that's potentially going to come away a bit, isn't it? At the end of 53 you think you're going to go home, and actually what you do, you've got a lot more still to say, so let's get on with that a bit. This is 54. We could spell that pattern out a little bit, couldn't we? 55. I wouldn't do it that much, but that's essentially what's happening there, isn't it? The repeat of that pattern. But the second one, here, let's go through and perhaps just pull back a little bit at the end so that we know it's coming to the end of the piece. We better play it through, hadn't we, from the top. And I always think these things make more sense with the ground bass underneath it. So let's do something about that, shall we? I don't know what new and interesting skills you've been experimenting with during lockdown. I have spent quite a bit of time learning about multi-tracking. So for this ground, I have multi-tracked 4 pizzicato tenor viols to give us a ground to play against in a sort of giant lute effect. Sometimes it works quite well. Sometimes a lute would definitely have been better, but in the absence of a lute, you've got me and my 4 tenors. So we're going to try this at 2 different speeds. We'll get 2 bars of introduction from the ground before we start, so I won't need to count in. I'm going to listen to it through my headphones. You should be able to hear it nice and clearly, and we'll play the divisions together. See you at the end. Should we give it a go a bit quicker? I think it should go slightly faster than that. It's quite soporific, isn't it? But I think it does work better, just slightly quicker.